We go. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're from. I'm Leo and a recovered alcoholic, and thank you all for being here. Rob, Bill, and I will attempt to entertain you today and maybe give you something that you didn't already know. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the third step prayer there, sir.
Okay, sir. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob K., recovered alcoholic, and we'll be starting with the third step prayer, which is on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And I do thy will always.
All right. Thank you very much, Rob, and welcome back. Um, okay, everyone, we are on page 72, beginning of Into Action. This is kind of above all, we need to get humility. So this is kind of an attempt to do that into this part of it. The very beginning here, we're going to see as the purpose of our fourth step as well. And we'll be talking a little bit about our weak items, which is our resentments, fears, conduct, and harms, and our defects, which are driven by resentments. And we will be working towards that in this chapter. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Rob. Thank you, sir. And we'll get started.
Thanks very much, Leo. And as again, we're on page 72, right at the top. Into action. Having made our personal inventories, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery, mentioned in the preceding chapter.
Yeah, and so kind of to review here, we have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. That's really the purpose of our step 4. And as I said earlier, and again, we're reviewing that as our resentments, our fears, conduct, and harms. And we'll be looking at those a little bit as we go along, and looking at here to another human being, which is probably our sponsor. With that, we'll be looking at our fifth step here. So, Rob?
Yeah, now I'm going to put it in the chat. There's 6 things that we just talked about on, in that first little paragraph. And a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator. We've discovered the obstacles in our path. We had admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what our trouble is, why we've had trouble living the way we've been living. Okay, and we have put our finger on the weak items, and these are about to be cast off. So there's 6 things there that we have come to realize. Hi, Teresa. Okay, so we're on page 72, everybody. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all, emphasize all their life story.
Absolutely. And really, this is one paragraph is a big warning. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. And we try, they basically explain that as they go through this, trying to avoid this humbling experience. They have turned to easier methods, which have not worked, will not work for most people. And invariably, they get drunk again. So, what are we saying here? We get to do a very thorough and honest step 4. That is the beginning of this. We go to a step 5, and we share that step 4 with another person. Like I said earlier, probably your sponsor. It can be multiple people if you're uncomfortable with some of the subject matter with one person or another. It's generally of the same sex. So if you are in mixed company, it may or may not be appropriate. So it's up to you as far as that goes. If you don't do this this step, you try to do this personally and privately to yourself, you will have not completed the proper procedure here and a proper house cleaning, and you'll only think that you have lost your ego and your fear. They had not humbled themselves appropriately, and not gaining humility leads to taking another drink. Rob?
Yeah, and I'm going to go to page 58 for a second and how it works. And I'm just going to read a little bit here. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They're such unfortunates. Sometimes people hold back things because they don't want other people to think less of them. We usually tell our story to our sponsor, who knows almost everything about us. But if we hold back things, that's when we suffer. Okay, because we're not being honest with ourselves and with another human being and with God. We have to be honest. We have to open up. We could get rid of these things so they're not eating our lunch anymore. So we tell another person. Now, usually what happens is that some things might come, all of a sudden rise out of us that we realize, oh, there's this part. I forgot about that. That's fine. That's normal. What do? Okay, well, we tell another person right away, and God. Okay, if these things are buried deep inside, sometimes they don't surface until later on. But it's when we intentionally hold back on things because we don't want somebody to think less of us. These are the things that will cause us trouble later on. Why? Because we're not being honest. Let's get rid of it. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable enough telling your sponsor, find somebody that you can feel comfortable telling. Because as Leo said, this doesn't have to be one person that we're telling. It can be multiple people. So keep that in mind, please. And we're on page 73, everybody. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, this is really one of those revelations that all of us can relate to, and that is that as being an alcoholic, you didn't really want that excessive drinking, that loss of control, the resentments that you harbor to really well up and show themselves to other people. You would rather keep that private. So you basically lead a double life where you've got that mask that you use as a character and try to maintain a certain reputation with regard to other people. It's very true for an alcoholic. Can't say enough about this, that I tried my best to hide my alcoholism and put forth a sober-ish personality, and one that was supposedly under control, all to have everything fall apart as soon as I started drinking, and the real Leo, actually the part that I didn't want people to see, came to the forefront. So it is something to be aware of, and it's something that we are afflicted with regard to leading that double life. Rob?
Yeah, we find out later that we thought we were hiding so many things in our life, that we're keeping it all to ourselves, only to find out later on that, people know, they know, but we are the ones that we're fooling ourselves. We're not fooling anybody else. And we realize this later on, you know, we try to pretend we are somebody that we are not. Alcohol, sometimes gives us that illusion that we can be something we're not. Okay. But deep down, people know who we are.
Mhm.
And we're, as I say, we're just fooling ourselves. So we're at the bottom of page 73, everybody. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know for but few instances where,
You missed one paragraph, sir.
oh, did I? Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Okay.
The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He's under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking.
Sure does. It makes for a lot more drinking, and um, um, these certain episodes vaguely remembers. My wife recorded me on a couple of occasions, and I was shocked at my personality change and my attitude, and the things that I sat down and was just basically mumbling and slurring and talking about. It was just I was mortified. So one that I don't care to remember, but is certainly there in my past, and it does serve as a reminder for me that drinking does not come with anything good whatsoever. So it's a nice reminder to have, even if it's hard to watch and listen to. So anyway, that is something that rings true for me. Rob?
Yeah, which reminds me of page XXIX. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as many do. Just back to the humble, the embarrassment, the shock at what we do. When Leo was just talking about his wife videotaping, it reminds me, David Hasselhoff many years ago, his daughters uh, videoed him drunk, trying to eat a hamburger. And I remember they put it on social media. Uh, I don't know whether it was on Instagram, Facebook, it doesn't really matter. I don't think anybody is going to do that to us, but you never know. But it's the family is trying to get us to wake up and trying to get us to see what they're seeing and how embarrassing it is. But we know once we take alcohol into our system, the allergy kicks in a phenomenal craving, and we can't stop. We need something more than just, you know, embarrassment to have us stop and to get better. And that's why it's I feel so sad to have these people, that are just going through so many embarrassing, and tragic things in their life.
Yep.
because of their drinking. Oh, well, let me go back to the paragraph that for some reason I wanted to read this paragraph. I- that's the excuse I'm going to use. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance for recovery.
Sure, and it's um, evident. I know for a fact when I first started seeing a counselor, I was trying to just appease other people to kind of um, stave off the ridicule, and I was not honest with these counselors. I actually just thought I was telling them what they wanted to hear, as opposed to what they should or needed to hear. And I suffered for that, and I mean that personally. I suffered for that because I was not in the frame of mind to get their help and accept it. So it wasn't until years later that I finally decided that being open and honest with my counselor was more advantageous than not. It was when I started to get sober and realize the error in my ways, as well as also the benefits of being in a recovered lifestyle, and therefore began to be open and honest. And it certainly has paid dividends in assisting me on a personal level from a one-on-one basis with regard to my recovery. I have been with a certain psychologist now for, gosh, I don't know how many years now I've been seeing this gentleman. And we've got quite a good relationship, and he is specializes in recovery and drug addiction, alcohol abuse, that type of thing. And so it's been really a good fit, and has paid, like I said, paid dividends. So this is something that is rampant. Most alcoholics are not honest with the medical profession. In fact, there was a thing that my wife was reading to me the other day, and that is that most doctors don't believe you if you tell them that you don't drink. You have to kind of give them an explanation that you're a recovering alcoholic, but even then, they're a little bit jaded and suspect that you're just saying what you're saying and that you really do drink. So no wonder that that's there. It was not because of anything other than alcoholics basically essentially being caught in a lie, I'm sure. Um, and even those that drink normally aren't completely honest with their doctors about how much they drink. So anyway, Rob?
Yeah, I'm going to go to page 133 just for a moment, because it's got a great line in there. But this does not mean that we disregard human health measures. God has abundantly supplied this world with fine doctors, psychologists, and practitioners of various kinds. Do not hesitate to take your health problems to such people or such persons. Now, I can remember a young lady that was in the fellowship, and she talked about she went to her doctor, or she was admitted to the hospital. And when the doctors came to her and said, "Well, how much do you drink?" and she would say, "Oh, a couple a day." And so the doctors are stymied. Doctors are there to help us. Psychologists, all these people want to help us. But because we don't tell them the truth, when she said a couple a day, she meant bottles. The doctor, of course, is thinking a couple of drinks. So, you know, the doctors are trying to put two and two together, but, you know, they can't, they don't know your lifestyle. They don't know what you're doing, what you're coming up with. It takes them a lot longer to realize that, they draw blood, they see how much alcohol is in your system, etc. But they're looking to try to help us as quickly as possible. And when we can't be honest with them and be honest with ourselves by admitting, we drink a lot, and that can cause problems. it slows down the recovery process. It stops the doctors from being to diagnose our injuries. So all through this book, they've been talking about honesty, and we've got to get honest, not only with other people, but with ourselves, and admit that we have a problem. First step in recovery. We have to admit to our inner self that we are alcoholic. Bottom of page 73, everybody. We must be entirely honest with somebody. If we expect to live long or happily in this world, rightly and naturally, we think well before we would choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belong to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority, whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of things here. One is that this was written before we had sponsors, so the reference to somebody that is a religious figure, especially if you are a very religious person, is certainly a go-to kind of person. They're going to be confidential. They should be trustworthy, and they probably have heard a lot of what you would be telling them in the first place. So that's not a bad place to go. Today's kind of changed when the way we've got sponsors and the fact that they've been there, done that before. They've done a step 4 and a step 5. They've also probably heard a step 5 from someone else. They've sat in the rooms and listened to some of the stories that have been expressed. And so it is an appropriate place to be when you're ready to do your step 5, is to do it with a sponsor. But it really is that question is who to do this a 5th step with. And I think it's just as important to say probably who you would not do a 5th step with, and that's usually a family member, especially a spouse or partner, somebody that doesn't necessarily understand what you're dealing with. Maybe somebody that's you feel like maybe it's a stranger that you'd rather tell it to. Especially in a sense that they don't know who you are and don't know why you're doing it, and probably can't respect and or relate to a step 5, is probably not a good idea to do that. In all cases, you're going to want to make sure that that it is in confidence, that these people are going to be able to listen to what you say and keep it to themselves. So a lot of things to think about with regard to that person that you're going to do a step 5 with. And again, just to reinforce, it's most likely going to be your sponsor. Rob?
Yeah, remember why we're doing it: to ourselves for awareness, to God for forgiveness, and to another for humility. Now, if you do not feel comfortable speaking to your sponsor, then you do not have the right sponsor. And you should find somebody that you feel more comfortable opening up to. Because if life goes on, there are going to be things that crop up in your life that you want to be able to bounce ideas off of or bounce problems off of. And you want to be able to have somebody you can go to that is going to keep your confidence, you're going to keep your trust. And if you have a sponsor that is going around spreading gossip, etc., that is not a good person to deal with. Okay? They got to be able to keep it to themselves. So please keep that in mind. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search out our acquaintance for a closed mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which would hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others.
That's a good explanation here in regards to continuing that evaluation of who you may want to share your step 5 with. Obviously, if it's going to hurt that person, this is not the right person to share this with, and you want to make sure that they are going to be unaffected by it. So again, we reinforce it's probably not a wife or husband or a parent, or I can't imagine why it would be appropriate to share with your kids, but it would be, I think, awkward to say the least. And you this isn't something to do or say at somebody else's expense. You've got to be considerate of other people. Rob?
Yep. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others, because we're getting into a God-conscious life where we think of others before we think of ourselves. Remember, before we were selfish and self-centered, everything was for us. Now we're thinking about other people. Bottom page 74. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, and maybe one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed only. However, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity, we say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at, that he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone.
I think I've seen most people that are in a frame of reference to try and postpone their step 5. I think that they're still hanging on to some of those fears, and again, I think that is something that you've got to come to terms with. You have to be open and honest about, and you have to let go. Part of this too is tell them it's not their job to fix you. This isn't something for them to respond to everything that you say with some type of criticism, whether it's constructive or not. To pass judgment is out of bounds as well. It is essentially there to just listen to what you have to say. Certainly certain responses are appropriate, but they're usually just, I hear what you're saying. Wow, that must have been really tough. I'm glad that you're sharing this with me. Stuff like that, as opposed to responding to each and everything with some type of retort, type of help or assistance that can get really bogged down, and the purpose of the step 5 is lost at that point. And I can speak from my experience. I did a step 5 with a previous sponsor, and it got so long and drawn out because the sponsor wanted to share their stories alongside my stories, and it just kept going on and on. And so we really did quite the elongated step 5. It ended up being more sharing of a step 5 between the two of us, it seemed. But the big point here too, and I want to go back to reinforce, is do your best to not postpone this step. If you do, in fact, have to postpone it, you want to be immediately ready to do it at the first opportunity. It is critical that you do this step time and again. Those that are sober and have recovered will tell you that this 5th step was one of creating a lot of humility, and it is a cleansing and a weight off your shoulders, if you will. And it's one that is critical to the success of your recovery. So don't postpone unless you absolutely very much have to. And again, I think I'll go back to what Rob said. If you are uncomfortable sharing with your sponsor, you probably don't have the right sponsor. Rob?
Yeah, on the bottom page 74 and the top of page 75, they talk about a few things that to look for in a sponsor. And what it is important that they be able to keep it confident, that they fully understand and approve what we're driving at, and three, that they will not try to change our plan. You know, and this is what a sponsor is there for. Now, if you don't feel, as I say, if you don't feel comfortable with your sponsor hearing your step 5, find somebody else that can hear it, a minister, psychiatrist, you know, another person in the fellowship you might want to talk to, you know, because you know that they're not going to blab it about. But as they say on page 59, half measures avail us nothing. You know, if we postpone this step, you know, we're just postponing the inevitable. Okay, step 1, 2, and 3 will keep us sober for a short period of time. Okay, but if we don't go on with the program, but there's 12 steps for a reason. Okay, if we only needed 3 steps and we're done, that's all it would be. But we have 12 steps and we've got to do them all. Top of page 75, everybody. When we decide who's to hear our story, we waste no time. We have written inventory. We have a written inventory, and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence.
Absolutely. And something that is that to hear and to be a part of something like this should be somewhat honorable. You want to give context as to what it is, explain to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it, and then get consent. That's another one too, is you want to make sure that they are ready, willing, and able to spend the time necessary in order to hear a complete step 5. I broke mine up a little bit, and it ended up being 3 sessions of a step 5. Again, it was partly because of the sharing of stories back and forth, but nonetheless, it did take a while. There's nothing wrong with taking breaks, but again, you want to make sure that it's not part of it 1 month and then another month goes by, you do another part and then another month goes by, that type of thing. You really want to get through this in 1 session, in quick succession, if not in a couple of days at most. So, Rob?
And the next paragraph, we're going to read why this is so important and why we do it. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of our past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on a broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of promises in that paragraph as well, with regard to why we do this. We pocket our pride and we go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Again, this is a reference to doing things thoroughly. And once we have taken this step, then the promises come about with what we're doing, as far as that goes. Rob has put those promises in the chat. So it is kind of an interesting kind of finish. When you do finish, how you feel. There is an enlightenment. There is this kind of cleansed feeling that you have. Again, it's kind of the weight off your shoulders. It's amazing how refreshing it is, but also how tired you probably are at the end of it. But nonetheless, it is a good feeling. It's kind of like a boxing match, if you will. You're the winner of the boxing match. It's always the winner is, bright-eyed and, and happy and that type of thing, whereas the loser seems to be kind of dull and mushy, if I can use that word. But nonetheless, you feel like you've been through the ringer, and at the same time you feel refreshed with the weight off your shoulders, and something comes over you, and like they said, that the drink problem has disappeared, and a lot of times that's felt very strongly after your step 5. Rob?
Yeah, Leo talked about the 7 promises that are in that one little paragraph. A lot of times a sponsee will ask you, when will I start having a spiritual experience? When will that happen? When will I have my spiritual awakening? When was this going to happen? Well, on page 75 here, it says, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. So right here, they're talking about that spiritual experience. Remember, we're there to get everything out into the open. Okay. We're not to hold back anything. Now we're going to read in the next paragraph where we sort of find out, did we say everything? Are we holding something back? Page 75, everybody. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand?
Yeah. So a good review, one that you can sit down and see if you've omitted anything. If you have, that's okay. If it's something that just didn't pop into your mind until just then, jot it down and get back to the person you were sharing your step 5 with, and make sure that the extra items are covered, and that's expected, certainly is appropriate. And you're going to want to take that hour and just reflect, and again, talk to your higher power, and review the 12 steps. That's on page 59, just for everybody's reference, and ask yourself if you have omitted anything. Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Again, that's just basically some reference to the stones. And real quick, we have those on pages 12, 17, page 47, page 62, page 97, and then obviously we're on page 75, so there is at least some reference to that. I'll let Rob go into a little bit more detail on that if he wants, but otherwise that's the reference that we're making. Rob?
Yeah, the stones, are they properly in place? We're going to walk through an arch. We've built this archway, willingness, honesty, open-mindedness, and if any of the stones are not properly in place, that means the structure is not solid. And if we walk through it, that big keystone rock that is in the top, I'll put a picture of the arch in the chat in a little bit. And if that keystone, which is the top arch that holds everything in place, if the foundation is not solid, that keystone will fall. And as we walk through and it falls on our head, we go, what the heck did I forget? It's important that everything is properly in place. because we don't want it falling down. We want a solid foundation. We want a solid arch that we're going to walk through. You know, there's many reasons for it. I've been doing a book study with an author that wrote the 20 most misunderstood, misinterpreted mistakes of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he had some ideas of why we do all these things. Returning home, we find a place where we be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. Okay. And this quiet reflection is an important and intricate part of our sobriety. It is a personal moment of peace and ease to share with God. Now, I put all these things in the chat. Take a look at them when you get a chance, you know, because I find it interesting, but, you know, this is somebody else's take on why we go through some of these things, you know. But we're there to sit down, take a moment, meditate. Okay, have I forgot something? Because it's so important that if we have forgotten something, that we call the person up and let them know that, oh, I forgot to tell you this. Sometimes it's a little thing, sometimes it's a big thing. And it's if we have forgot about it, okay, we just forgot about it. That's one thing. If we have forgot it on purpose, that becomes a big thing, because we're not being honest with ourselves and with another human being and with God. That is going to cause us problems. So please, I can't stress this enough. Top of page 76, everybody. If you can answer to our satisfaction, then we look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing.
This is taking a look at step 6. So we're actually just at the beginning of step 6 here. It is the key to this step is the willingness as being indispensable. And we are ready to let God remove from us all of the things which we have admitted are objectionable. Be really honest about this. The things that we're talking about is our resentments, our fears, our conduct and harms, and also the things, the defects of character. If we cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing to let go of it and do so. Right now we've basically done a step 5, and we're at that point of completing a step 6. Bob?
Yeah, and thank you to who put that arch in for me. Who did that? Jenny, thank you for putting that archway in the keystone for me. I appreciate it. We're going to be looking at the things that God's going to remove. Now, remember, we ask God to remove all these defects. We become aware of these defects of character, our shortcomings. Okay, Bill uses these words, shortcomings and defects of character interchangeably. Okay, they mean the same thing. And I'll put the website there if you want to go check it out, from Bill talking in a 1960, I believe, meeting, saying that defects and shortcomings are the same thing. He just used them because he likes to change words up. Anyway, we ask God to take them. We become aware of these defects, and when they start cropping up in us, we realize, go, hey, you know what? God, please take this away. Okay? If I'm jealous, take that away. It's an emotion that, it just causes you grief. So many defects that we just gotta, God, please take this away now so that I can live and enjoy life. When ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7.
Yeah. So step 6 and 7 are pretty quick. They're very short, but they are important. These are ones where you are being totally honest. You are very willing for your higher power to take away these defects, and then you ask for those defects to be taken away. So it's really a two steps that are completely related to each other. One is you're willing to have them taken away, and then you ask to have them taken away. So and you let them be taken away. That's another important part here. You let that happen in order to complete steps 6 and 7. So, Rob?
Yep. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellow and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we will go to any length for victory over alcohol.
Yeah, and we're examining right now. We're just looking at steps 8 and 9. We haven't started them. It's actually going to go through some explanations here in order to do a proper step 8 and 9. Obviously, step 8 is a list of all of those people that we've harmed and those that we're willing to make amends to. Again, that's got to be a very honest and thorough list. It's going to have some that are going to be relatively easy to approach, and then there's going to be those that are going to be a little bit more difficult, obviously. There's a lot to cover before we actually complete a step 8 and 9, and you have to do your part. And another thing here is that and we go out and to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. I want to emphasize here, and we'll probably say it again, and that is a simple apology is not an amend. It is only if the person says, all I want is an apology and we're good, that an apology would be appropriate. Otherwise, you're looking to do something more than just an apology. So remember that going into your steps 8 and 9. Remember, you're going to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. So this is going to be important for you to accomplish. Again, these are important steps. I'll emphasize too that step 8 is much like step 4 in that a lot of what you've written in your step 4 will carry over into your step 8. But step 9 is something that you will begin. And I feel like that it's something that should be explained, that step 9 is kind of a journey. It's not something that has got necessarily, it's got a start, but it doesn't necessarily have a finish, because it may take you a while to get through all of your step 9 amends as far as that goes. And as you finish your first list of things that from your step 8 that you're going to be doing, you may find that you've got a couple of extra in there as well. So, Rob?
Yeah, you sometimes hear about sponsors saying that after you've done your step 5, that you burn your step 4. You just burn all the papers, and it's such a great moment. We learn here that we made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Okay, now we need this list. Okay, because it says right here when we made it the list when we took inventory. So don't burn your list. You need it for steps 8 and 9. Okay, so we can go back and use it. So I just want to throw that out there. Also, there's a warning here. Faith without works is dead. Came from the book of James, chapter 2, verse 26. But that goes with what Bill wrote on page 14 and 50. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Okay? We're not helping others. We're not, enlarging our spiritual life. What we are doing is stagnating. Remember, growth and maintenance. To have a garden, you have to do maintenance. You have to weed out, the weeds. You have to make sure bugs and everything don't eat all your plants. Okay? Maintenance for growth to develop.
Mhm.
I always thought that it was, growth. I forgot about the maintenance, you know? And Bill so eloquently put it one time, that, hey, the garden, you have to work on it. It doesn't just, you plant the seed and it grows. No, there's work to be done. And if we don't do this work, nothing's going to happen. We're going to rest on our laurels. And what's going to happen? The obsession is going to return and we will return to drink. So we have work to do. Please remember that.
And then speaking of Bill, let's go ahead and bring Bill in.
Hold.
And so close to that time, and this will be a good place for us to stop and get started back again next week. Bill?
Okay, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. Nice meeting. We started here on step 5, and basically what Bill's doing, he's giving us instructions here on how to do the 5th step. Right in the first page, he says, a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. He's telling us why we need to talk to somebody else about what's wrong with us. Because you can't grade your own paper. It just won't work right. Because we won't be honest with ourselves. We'll give ourselves all kinds of leeway and everything else. You need somebody else to look at you and they can see what's wrong. And when you're telling your story to somebody else, they can be, unbiased about it, especially if they understand what's going on here. And you want somebody that understands this. And today, the person would probably be your sponsor. That's the person most people use. When they wrote this book, they didn't have sponsors. They only had 2 meetings when this book was published. There wasn't a whole lot of alcoholics around. So Bill put a lot of different things in here, who you could find, different friends, and he even has family members. I don't recommend doing it with a family member. It probably just won't come out right. Bill just put that down there because I think he was running out of suggestions. And at the time, that was the only thing. If somebody lived out in Wyoming and all they had was a big book and they were out in the middle of a rural area somewhere and there wasn't anybody around, they might have to talk to a family member. But today we have meetings all over the place. We have Zoom meetings, online meetings, telephone meetings. You can find somebody that's been through this that can take you through it. And it's just better if you use somebody that understands what you're doing here. Because again, if you go to a family member, they'll probably try to shut you down. They'll say, oh, I'm just glad you stopped drinking. You don't have to tell me all of that stuff. And like Rob mentioned, the reason we say this stuff, we say it to God for forgiveness, we say it to ourselves for awareness, and we tell it to another human being for humility. And if you don't tell it to another human being, you're going to miss out on that stuff. And he gives us a warning down here at the end of the first page. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. This is one of the few places in the book that it tells us if we don't do something or if we do something, we may drink again. There's about a half a dozen different places, and this is one of them. It's telling us if we don't do step 5, if we skip it, we're liable to drink again. It doesn't say we're definitely going to drink, but it says we may not overcome drinking. And isn't that the reason most of us came here in the beginning? We wanted to be able to stop getting drunk. So basically, he's giving us a warning there that if we don't do this, we may not overcome drinking. And then he told us on page 75 that there's a bunch of promises there. And like Rob mentioned it says, we begin to have a spiritual experience. That's what we get. Right? The book is telling us right at this point, when we get honest with somebody and we start telling the things that we did and what our defects are or our wrongs, we start to have a spiritual experience. Now, this isn't the end of it. That's why it only says we begin to have a spiritual experience. You want to complete the spiritual experience and you want to keep it or maintain it or grow in it, whatever you want to call it, you have to go through the rest of the steps. But if you skip step 5, you're going to skip the beginning of the spiritual experience, because that's what it says right here in this book. That's what we get. And also keep in mind, when you're doing it, after you do your 5th step and you go through the rest of this process, you're going to have another 5th step to do. That's going to be with your sponsee. So your first 5th step is the one that you tell to your sponsor, and the next 5th step is the one that your sponsee tells to you, because you're supposed to carry this message to another alcoholic, or alcoholics with an S on it. So remember, we're going through this process to learn how to do it so that we can take other people through it. And then he jumps into step 6, and pretty basically, step 6, like Leo said, the willingness is the key here. If you're willing to go through with this, and you're willing to have God take away all the things that are objectionable, that's your defects of character, all your shortcomings, and both of those things mean the same thing. According to Bill Wilson, they both mean the same thing. His intention was that they're the same thing in his mind. He just used different words because he just liked it. He liked to use different words. And then he goes into the 7th step, and we have a 7-step prayer here. And in the 7th step prayer, he says, remove from me every single defect of character. And the 7th step says, we're ready to have him remove our shortcomings. The step says shortcomings, the prayer says defects of character. So again, according to Bill Wilson, both of those terms mean the same thing. And it says, grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Doing your bidding. That means we're going to start taking action. That's what bidding means. We're going to do God's work. And what's God's work? We're going to try to help another alcoholic stay sober. And that's basically what this is talking about. That's pretty much all I got on these steps. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you, Bill. I really
Thanks
appreciate
so much, Bill.
Yep. All right, Rob.
And don't forget, his study is in the chat on Friday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Come on out and listen. The man has a vast knowledge.
Yes.
And the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.